thank you very much for coming in today.
Yeah,
It's
thank
good
you.
to see you again.
You too.
So, how can I help you today?
I wanted to talk to you about my frustrations with Deb. I know that I've touched on that a little bit, and I feel like I'm kind of circling the drain with this a little bit, but I'm just really frustrated with her right now.
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah.
And that's tough. You know, there are situations, daily situations we all find ourselves in that causes frustration, so you're certainly not alone in that. So your frustrations with Deb, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. It's right now it's during our Sunday school. She is very engaged and she is very vocal during our Sunday school lessons. But her response is not supportive, and she honestly she just makes me really angry.
Okay, I hear you. So, thinking on that, what are some things that you can think of that are triggers for you, that trigger your anger?
Yeah, so here's what I've been dealing with lately is the lessons that we're having in Sunday school are the theme, overarching theme is about the love of God, right? Mm-hmm. And how that influences all of our lives as Christians, just to kind of sum it up or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Deb agrees with that, but then she wants to let me know after Sunday school lessons or whatever of how she thinks I should have geared that, or how she thinks I should have spent more time talking about this certain thing. And, mine and her styles are not the same at all.
Okay. So it seems like you have a certain path that you're taking the Sunday school group.
Right.
And the path that she sees fit that it should go down is not the same. And so she wants to constantly relay this to you
all the time.
So as this happens and she's approaching you, that kind of triggers you to already get in that mindset, negative thoughts, and kind of had some kind of getting an angry, kind of have a, kind of just be angry towards her.
Right.
Okay. So when you find yourself in those situations, what's her response to you?
She doesn't understand where I'm coming from, because in her mind it makes total sense, right? Like she just wants to give me feedback, and she can't understand like why that's making me frustrated, or why our interactions after Sunday school are typically in frustration. And she, when I'm aggravated with her or whatever, even if she's not 100% sure where I'm coming from, she then in turn gets frustrated with me.
Okay, I see. So, thinking of that, or kind of going on that, are there things you can think of with Deb that are helpful? Are there things that Deb does that are helpful at times? Or is it all negative?
No, it's not all negative. I mean, she's a very good person. She has a good heart. She's involved in our homelessness ministry at the church. She does prison ministry, which she got me involved in, and I love. Mm-hmm. And she will do anything for anybody, especially me. Like she's very proud to be at the church and have a place in the church. And I can always count on her. So it's not all negative. She does have really good qualities about her, and I'm aware of that.
Okay. So, in kind of looking at both sides of that, if you were to try to think of words that you would use to describe Deb, what are some words you would use?
She is persistent. Mm-hmm. She can be overbearing. But like I said, she's very compassionate. Mm-hmm. But sometimes she's just really not a good listener.
Okay. So that part that's overbearing and not a good listener, is she typically that all the time? Or is she not that well? Are there other times she's not?
No, she's not always overbearing. She's not always pushy and things like that. Like when we're doing our ministry together and when we're working together, or if I need her, she's right there. You can't ask for a better person, as far as wanting to help and just be present. Like she you want more of her.
Yeah.
in the church and in your community. You really do.
Okay.
So no, I can definitely think of good parts to Deb. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and kind of thinking on that, so after your arguments with Deb,
Yes.
after you find yourself in that situation, for you, what does that feel like? Like, what is your mood after one of those arguments?
I'm so aggravated and just so irritable. The problem doesn't go away. I feel like she still didn't hear me. I'm still frustrated, and I hate it. I mean, I'm puts me really in a bad space, especially when I'm at church.
Okay.
Trying to get my Jesus vibe on, and
Right,
she
right.
throws me off. So,
So I see. So would you describe your arguments with her as not productive?
no, they are not productive.
Okay. So when you're in that moment with Deb, and I'm trying to like paint the situation here. So when you're in that moment with Deb, when she approaches you after a lesson, you're kind of already triggered to respond.
Yeah, I mean,
Anger.
as soon as she's coming up, right, or after Sunday school, and she's approaching me, I'm pretty much already on the defense because I know what's coming.
Okay. And so I'd like to kind of switch gears and think of another example. So you work at a nursing home, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in your like daily tasks and job and your normal routine at the nursing home, are there situations where you find yourself with similar conflict with interacting with people, like to the point to where you feel like arguing?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that
Okay.
happens. I do.
Right.
With coworkers, or even, I hate to say that, but we have conflict with not usually residents, but family members for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's frustrations and pieces of that in my work day.
Okay, so in these moments, how do you react in these situations?
I mean, I get a little angry.
Mhm.
So, but I don't typically argue with people at work.
Okay, and may I ask, why is that?
I don't want to get fired. I don't want to get in trouble.
That's a good point.
So I just, even if I'm frustrated, I just try to avoid that. I hope.
Okay, so looking at that, would it be wrong for me to say that when you're in these moments at work and you're disagreeing with others, you get just as angry sometimes in those situations as you would with Deb?
No, that's not wrong. It has happened, yes. I've been just as angry, I'm sure,
Okay.
with coworkers and maybe even my boss, but...
So we could agree that there's definitely a consequence at work. I mean, that's for sure. You don't want to lose your job. And when you find yourself in these moments at work, like when you're having conflict with people, and you're more or less able to control your reaction a little bit, you can control your reaction, but you're still just as mad. Would that be correct in me saying that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So with these negative interactions at work or things that happen where you find yourself in conflict, is there a thought process that happens, and like more specifically, a thought process that allows you to walk away from these arguments and the possible consequence of getting fired?
A thought process? Yeah, I walk away, like you said. Yeah, I mean, I understand that I can't act out or respond to that like I would if I weren't at work, yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of switch back and go back to Deb a little bit and kind of look at that, kind of in comparison and contrast with work. So what were your thoughts like when you're in the moment of conflict with Deb? What are your thoughts? Like, do you remember what they were? Or like when she walks up to you?
Yeah, when she walks up to me, I'm already mad. Yeah, I'm already mad.
Okay, so you're already
yeah, because there's a
you're
history.
triggered.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
So she walks up to you, and your thoughts are already negative, right?
Yes.
And your behavior is following that. You kind of engage in an argument with her.
A little bit, yes.
Okay. So I just want to highlight here that even with Deb, there's this intervening thought that you have. Intervening thought between like your trigger, her walking up to you, and your behavior of responding in anger. There's still that intervening thought like there is at work.
You mean like an intervening thought, like knowing that she's about to piss me off?
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. So,
yes.
So even in that moment, there's that thought.
Yeah.
So this is what they know of in this field as a cognitive distortion, or some people call it a thinking error.
That's more understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So when Deb's approaching you, you're already thinking of bad things. You're already having those negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily remembering the good that she brings to the table. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's definitely not on my mind right at the time. I mean.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that Deb does a lot of good work for the church.
Yeah, again, like the homelessness stuff. Like she essentially launched that whole thing herself.
Okay.
I mean, and that ministry was not at the church before Deb got there. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, she does have her hand in a lot of things that are really beneficial, and I see the positive that she's done.
Okay, good. So, kind of keeping these good qualities in mind, especially while you're at church and when you're in Sunday school and times outside of Sunday school, what might be some thoughts do you think that you could have in these moments, like as an alternative to arguing, I guess I could say, that could possibly change the outcome?
I mean, because you've had me in that thinking, it would be to think about the good that she brings to the table.
Yeah.
Reflect on some positive attributes about her, and maybe that would kind of level out my anger a little bit. My frustrations would subside.
Yeah.
If I could just have that moment instead of going straight to being frustrated, because I really it's just my instinct at this point.
So that's so that moment in time that we're talking about right now, that's what is known kind of in the industry, as we would say, like kind of known in this field as an adaptive response. So thinking on Deb, she's not all bad. She does do good for the church, right? You would agree with that. Then this is the different than just the automatic negative thought of Deb criticizes me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, and kind of going further, we could say that arguing with Deb is not productive, right? We've agreed on that, right?
Yeah, it's not productive. Nothing. She doesn't hear me, and I don't think I hear her because, well, I know I'm right, and so
right.
No, it's not productive, and in those moments, nothing gets worked out other than a bad afterthought between Sunday school and church. Just it like I said, it kind of throws me off a little bit. So yeah, no good comes out of that.
Okay, so there's essentially no identifiable good results that come out of arguments or anger towards them.
No, not so far. No.
Okay, all right. So
that's why I'm here.
Right. So in these confrontational situations, and even outside of Deb and outside of work, just in general, has responding in anger or those confrontational situations, has responding with negative thoughts or anger produced good results or worked out before?
No, never.
Okay.
I don't think so.
That's totally fine. Typically, typically it doesn't for any of us.
No.
So it sounds like that responding in the anger with Deb or any other situation doesn't necessarily have a good track record of working out.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, not at all.
So kind of moving forward, do you have any thoughts on, I'm trying to think of how to frame this, what would be more productive in your interactions with Deb after Sunday school as opposed to just arguing?
I mean, I could probably avoid that interaction, or if I know it's coming, dodge it. I mean, I guess I would say for the time being, right now, until there's a different time, instead of when I am already feeling, a little bit overwhelmed or whatever. I could walk away. And that would be easy to do at church. Just find somebody else to talk to or find something to do in between that time. So.
And that's a good plan. I want to acknowledge that. That's a good idea. So you're triggered by Deb when you see her walking up to you right after the lesson. You're already thinking negative thoughts. Yeah. So you can kind of intervene in that moment by walking away instead of responding in anger.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. If I had just a window of, there's not a whole lot of time anyway, 5 to 10 minutes. If I just had that, it would really help. And then that keeps me from being frustrated with her, you know, and it eliminates an opportunity for her to give feedback that I'm not really particularly interested in hearing.
Or that you may not be ready to engage in deep thought on at that moment.
Right.
Okay, that's good. So it seems like, and from my understanding, this necessarily the track of the Sunday school, that's an important issue to you and an important issue to Deb. It sounds like it's really important to both of you.
Yeah, it is, but I won't say that. It is definitely important to me. I was going to say she needs to get her own Sunday school class, but no, I want her to be there. I want us to have a good time together where we're both heard and it's beneficial to the class. So it's definitely important for both of us that time together in the mornings. It is.
That's good. Then the hope, kind of moving forward on that, the hope is that this pause that you create there, that space you create to pause and reflect, I'm trying to think, it will kind of allow your following conversations with Deb, or allow them, the following conversations, to be more productive. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I could see how if I don't, if every interaction we have on Sundays is that, then I can't see me being excited when I hear from her, when she texts me or something, throughout the week. If that can be avoided, then I think we'll have a better, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but we're not off to a bad start based on Sunday. I'm not going to let that dictate the rest of our conversations or interactions for the rest of the week. Because we'll have avoided it, Or
the rest of the church service or the rest of the week in general. And hers too, both of you.
Yeah.
So maybe thinking about this, taking that moment in time to reflect on this after Sunday school, when Deb approaches you, or before she approaches you, will allow you to change your response. I'm trying to think, for example, like instead of dwelling on most certain argument that's going to come forward, instead of kind of dwelling on those thoughts, you can utilize what's going to be your adaptive response in that moment to kind of walk away, think for a few minutes. So that allows that adaptive response to kick in.
You're right, because like you said, I'm already doing it at work.
Yeah.
You've made that connection. I'm already doing that at work, so if I could just see that as I also can do that at church, even though at work, even if it's just more so because I don't want to get in trouble, I also don't want my day to be ruined, or I don't want to have negative feelings towards her all the time. I don't.
And even though the consequences at work, it may seem they're maybe even like a little more tangible.
Right.
Like certainly you'll get fired, and so there may not be that stark consequence, maybe necessarily within the church setting, but you see it as possibly producing, further negative outcomes that you do not want to bring into the church or into your own personal life.
Right.
So that kind of makes sense.
Right.
Okay. So I want to highlight in this, instead of your thoughts working against you in your interactions with you and Deb, now thinking about that adaptive response, you can kind of train your thoughts to work for you. For example, like in the coming week, you can kind of practice that adaptive response. Like you can kind of work on that, even if you kind of role play it in your head, and see if you can kind of, like you said, incorporate that into your interactions with Deb instead of just reacting. So what I'm going to offer for you, if I may, I give you some advice or some.
Well, sure. I mean, it's just you've already set some good things into motion about thinking about the positive about her, which has really been helpful.
Yes.
Because it's easy, when somebody's triggered you or made you frustrated, and ongoing,
Mm-hmm.
to just get fixated on that. So, not to reset, but try to, see a whole picture.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
been really helpful. So yes.
Okay, so what I would like to offer you is there's a little bit of homework sometimes we give clients, and of course it's not a you don't have to write an essay or anything like that. It's not a massive homework assignment. It's a 1 page, and there's some lines with just simple questions you answer. It's called a thought log. So what that does is the thought log kind of identifies thoughts, triggers, responses. So even at work, when you find yourself in those situations, immediately after you find yourself in that, or if you feel it coming on, reach for your thought log and
Sure.
kind of write down, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And sometimes it goes into even a little bit more depth about body signs, how you're feeling, physiological responses to this imminent conversation that's going to happen that you want it to be a good outcome instead of negative. So I'll give you this thought log to work on.
Okay.
And then, so we'll start with this one adaptive response today, walking away
Sure.
and kind of reflecting for about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And as we move on in future sessions as we go on, we can maybe identify others, other things that are helpful. Some that you may not even be aware of. Walking away seems to be a good natural response for you.
Right.
There's so many techniques, mindfulness, deep breathing, things that we can work on. That's in the future. This week we'll start with the 1.
Okay.
I'll give your thought logs. You don't have to do it every day, just when you feel the need to do it,
Sure.
or when you feel it coming on. Does this sound okay for you?
Yeah, that's
Something
doable.
like-
I mean, and it's something that would be a good practice for me. And if I find things like that to be successful, then I can share that with other people. And so I love that. I'm always up for trying something
Good.
like that.
Good, absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. That's helpful.
No problem. So what I'll do is I'm going to talk with our secretary, and we've got stacks of those thought
Sure.
logs. I'll have to kind of dig them up. They're somewhere in here, so I'll get you a few copies of that.
Okay.
And on our way out, we'll talk with the secretary and set up a time to meet next week if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
To kind of go over your thought logs and your practice runs, or even like I said, even if it's in your head, or if you were able to utilize that at church this coming Sunday. So we'll work on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That'll be really helpful.
Oh, you're very welcome. We'll schedule an appointment,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss next week and see how it went.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in today. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
And we'll see you again next week.
Okay.